Okay, after we get the oil heated up, then it comes into a separate room. Now this room is off from where everything else is, and that's one of the things that I did that turned out to be a pretty wise thing to do. This is kind of a new enterprise. Nobody had run into somebody crazy enough to try to do something this small, and so really labor and industries didn't have any regulations for you to follow. So I got the planner and the inspector from L&I and the fire marshal all to come out to my building and work with me and say, now what makes sense to you? So that I didn't build something and then they come out and say, well, this doesn't do it. Because boy, if you want to get me mad, let me do something and then say it's not going to work. So anyway, we had them come out, we spent some time together. And the room, this is what I call my batch room. It's not a really big room, but it's lined with 2 layers of 5/8 inch sheetrock, and the door on it seals, and it's plumbed with carbon dioxide. It's got a vent system on it that's closable, so that if we have a fire, we can close that down and flood the room with carbon dioxide. Okay, so we have our heated oil. The heated oil is still on the outside. This is the batch tank. This is where we make the biodiesel right here. This is a meter and this is a meter. This is methanol, and that's the alcohol we use. You don't have to use methanol, but you have to use an alcohol. We use methanol. First we meter the methanol in the tank, and then we add the catalyst, which is in our case potassium hydroxide. We use potassium hydroxide instead of sodium hydroxide because the potassium hydroxide is more environmentally friendly. You don't want sodium left over in the environment if you can help it. It's not good for things. So we use potassium hydroxide. We mix the methanol, potassium hydroxide. We meter the methanol in there. Then we meter the oil in with it, and we mix it and heat it up to about 180 degrees. There's not a very good picture. Once it's heated, heats for about half an hour or so, and it's agitated, and after the batch is done then, and it's actually done under pressure, about 12-15 pounds of pressure, we heat it up to about 180 degrees, and the boiling point of methanol is about 148 degrees. So you've got a batch in there with methanol in it that the methanol actually wants to vaporize, but it's under pressure so it can't. But that's one of the excesses we have in our process, and we have to get that out of there. So what we do is we take the batch, which includes excess methanol, biodiesel, and glycerin, which is another byproduct, and we run it through a still. And this is part of the still right up there. It's a vacuum still. So you have methanol at 180 degrees Fahrenheit, wanting to boil at 148, that goes from under pressure to into a vacuum, and it just flashes off. It just turns into a vapor almost immediately. And then we have heat exchangers that cool it right back down again, and the excess that we draw off the mix, the excess that we draw off the mix goes back into the tank to be used again in the next batch. Then you have basically left over, you have biodiesel and glycerin, which are the two major remaining products. And this right here, that wasn't good at all. I think I got to do this twice. Okay, that's a centrifuge, and you all know what a centrifuge does. Separates fluids, and I guess it can separate other than fluids, but it'll take the high density fluid out of the low density fluid. The glycerol is the high density, and it goes into this tank right here. This is a little V-shaped tank, which you can't hardly see from back there. And so the glycerol goes in there, and the biodiesel comes into this tank, and is heated up one more time in an effort to get the very, very last of any methanol that happens to be in it. This is just a closer look at the batch tank and the meters that we use. There's a straightforward on the still. Lots of buttons and lights and alarms, I can tell you that much. It scares me. There's some stuff here that I'm not going to try to explain it all to you because the evening's getting long. But after we do the demethylization, we have to actually wash it a last time, and our process has actually changed since I had these photos made. So I'm not going to explain all that either. But we do a wash. It's called a dry wash, and we mix it with a certain product called Magnesol. It's supposed to pick up impurities, and then we have to filter that out. And I spent most of last winter building a special filter to do that. I don't think it's in these pictures, but it just shows you that our process is still evolving, and we haven't done much since I got my filter built. So I'm hoping that that'll work better. And anyway, and then the last thing we do is we have what we call a final filter, and this filters it probably down to 1 micron. So it's really a fine filter process. Spent a lot of time cleaning it up. That's the filter right there. There's the finished product, and it's running in that tank right there. You can see the stream right there. We circulate it through those last filters I showed you for about 20 minutes or 30 minutes or maybe even longer to come up with the final product. That's looking down through it. You can see how clear it is. It's looking down into a tank down to the bottom. And these are different stages, and that's the final product. You can see how clear it is. This is our storage tank. We picked up that from a neighbor. That's a 3-compartment truck, and we put regular petrol diesel in one, pure biodiesel in the other, and then we have our blend if we want to make a blend in the back. And it's got a meter system and everything, so it works really good to make the blends that we want to make. We burned B20, not in 2009, but 2008 we burned B20 in our combines and tractors, all harvested until we ran out, and had no issues whatsoever as far as running or anything like that. I believe it made my combine run cooler. The lubricity properties are really beneficial for biodiesel. That's the fun part right there. So I think that's it. Just in closing, it's been a good experience, and I expect to continue it this fall when we get the seed in the ground.